instructor here at MSA. Welcome to our third literary showcase of the 2021-2022 academic year. I'm a year ahead, Ms. Peterson. Literary showcases are culminating academic experiences for literary seniors. Today you will hear the definitive works of Diego Mendez and Lillian Denney. Before they come before you, I just want to take a minute to thank you all for supporting your peers, for supporting these students, especially the family members who are here. These students have worked really hard in garnering personal and professional growth, as well as state and national successes for their creative writing. And it has been an honor mentoring them. A few things about this evening's show. The works will be presented in 2 parts with an intermission, 10 minutes. During that intermission, we do have some refreshments that the literary students have provided for you. There will also be a brief Q&A after both parts have been done. So if you have questions for any of the writers, you have an opportunity to ask. Please silence your phones and refrain from walking around during the recitations, the readings. If you do need to use the facilities, please do it during the transition, and they're going to be to your right, past that exit to the left there. Finally, instead of clapping, literaries show their love through snapping, and we invite you to participate in that tradition today. Such a fun tradition. With no further ado, we're going to get this celebration of student literature started. And I'm going to have Diego and Lillian to come out and please welcome them.
Hi. Hello. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for coming here. We really appreciate it. Our show is called Finding Strength, featuring change. And yeah.
Our show is about finding your strength through different means, but change is necessary sometimes, and you gotta do it, so do it.
And since it's split up in 2 parts, I'll be doing the first part is all my works. My works is the first part, so you can come back. I'll be getting us started with The Woods Affairs. The Woods Affairs. Our walks cast a joy everlasting into you and me. Merry as the high above house finches singing sweet songs of love safe. For centuries, people would have dreamed for something like this to be. So while dazzling rivers flow and flow, steadfast continuously, the image of long stability, I saunter to our spot, barely containing my childish glee. You find and catch me, soft wind being our only companion in the moment. Garments become nuisances, discarded. Grand oaks voyeur while you cause me to falsetto. You make a weird grin as I feel your warmth in me. It may have been the few leaves in my frilly dress after I put it back on, yet I was left saddened. I had fallen into illusion, thinking it was love.
The jacket in the closet. Sandalwood aromas pierce my nose, which rubs against the jacket you lent me after you saw my arms tightly around my starving waist. I wear it in your absence. Don't worry, only when I'm alone. It stays hidden in the closet otherwise. It leads me to bed, where I've shown my appreciation for you best. You seem to care when a bone is more noticeably protruding against my supple hips or ribs. This led me to abandon all regards for bursting citruses or savory delights which may steer you away, in hopes one day you'll see me in the way you do the body I'm aiming for, hers.
Eating me alive. That's the only way I can think to explain. As my stomach shrieks at the resources neglected, the pain told me it would make you look my way. I spent a millennium analyzing your brain, losing myself in pink flaps, no little tick undetected. That's the only way I can think to explain. Adopting those patterns my friends hated, I was left hoping in my veins would trace your love injected. The pain told me it would make you look my way. The warmth of my legs against your waist filled the vast gaps in my sanity, desire nested. That's the only way I can think to explain. For I left everyone's unnecessary worries of self-care on a bullet train, all in hopes of again seeking some type of your affection. The pain told me it would make you look my way. It was the only thing left, so I let starvation carve away. After my body hollowed itself out, I persistently sought further acceptance. That's the only way I can think to explain. The pain told me it would make you look my way.
Leaf's Overture. I try to change every color for every season, yet with summer's full ivory beauty follows autumnal torture. I wish for once I could understand. With each spring anew, my mission begins. I sprout to cover all the parts you've grown tired seeing, as warmth overturns the air, while you come out to enjoy the environment I've produced, still blooming golds and reds with velvet peaches, not yet ripe, not yet ready. Yet you pick and pick and pick when you grow bored of gingham blankets where you once sat and ate, taking me from supporting tree only to tear me because I could never stop you who made a mockery of my living. I wish for once I could understand, shifting in a summer stiff beauty I become, never falling, never failing. With my classic green and full shape, one could never realize the strength it takes. I pump nutrients into myself that you've had to take time to see, a branch, a flaw. They're all covered in massive green. Do you like it? Do you even notice? I wish for once I could understand why it takes until autumn for me to receive my answer. When I grow tired from stern ferns all season, even through those taxing cloudy weeks, I begin to wither. Browns and orange cascade over me, weak. That's when all my cards, fragile parts, begin to fall. Once I've exposed everything to you, finally, you see me for a moment when it feels like I've found the shade, shape, version of me you enjoy. A weak vessel becomes which you crunch and crackle as you step onto me and I break further from the pressure. Tell me you at least like the sound though, right? I wish for once I could understand, because even then you go, bringing out your booming machines that you use and blowing me away. Then I realize how much I've become a burden to you. You take it further, piling me up, all my weak parts exposed on branches I've left completely unguarded. I'm a child, so confused. What do you want? Can't you see I'll become it? No. You pour this dark gasoline onto the only pieces of myself now shrouded in muck, and with a flash on the red-tipped short stick you ignite me, watching the blackened, dead pieces ashing up. You turn back, walking, my crackle screaming for answers. Hopefully at least the smoky smell I protrude will comfort you in some way. It has to. It's all I've got left. Branches frigid in the oncoming winter, with no hopes, you stay inside, warming by fires that once took me away from you. I wish for once I could understand why come spring again, every season, every color, I'll try to change for you.
Pained waltz. The waltz commenced, and I danced, foolishly following your draining lead into the space of everything wrong, and down path that should not have been taken. Straining to follow, still, you kept dancing, and I knowingly abided, a catalyst for my demise. I need answers, apologies, anything. I wanted life, but was presented with you.
Dear, dear, shots launched from your weapon with vicious intentions for the hunt I've become. Breaths rampant as tired, hindless pivot. Across your plots placed in winter's unforgiving freeze, hoof striding, under darting eyes, over reddening leaves where wounds overpour. White descends as snow overturns, and I barely limp wounded from these dangerous woods. Eyes flashing in illuminating shock on the dark highway pavement, as you're also the one driving.
Mayfly's fleeting flight. Exhaustion fuels my ever-presence that never extend past what seem shorter than a day. When suffering clips my wings and I am restricted to your wooden countertops, crumb-covered, you aim your neon swatter towards me, and I eventually evade out, watching the door that led into entrapment and to your unreasonably painful ruling, leaving to opening possibilities of lasting longer than a day.
The emancipation of a gay boy. Unassuming eyes of yours sprayed with assuming spit-filled lies from all over. Does everyone not feel this way? Am I different? With a voice that threatened masculinity and a walk bordering the feminine divine, you realize why the jaded daggers fly in your direction, towards a sexuality criticized by others while not even being fully realized by yourself. It hurts worse when they soar from hands of friends you've lost, upon unfolded rumors you haven't confirmed nor denied. Watching the blood red unfold into sheets down the bed it is prevalently assumed you made to lie in. Why can't you just be different? I didn't realize I was. Routine falls into the place where security no longer resides as you enter the pale bathroom, bare feet exposed on the cool blue tile, flipping the switch and not fully knowing who stands ahead in mirror sight. Not quite new, not quite you, simply light on a body, reflected, conflicting fantasies that fishhook into your brain, hurt taking out. Thinking of the same sex in that way won't kill you. That's society's job, but they're off the clock in your room, so stay a while longer. Desire peels at your brain and dares the nervous system to pick up your phone to explore it all, just to try and affirm this is truly the lifestyle you've been subjected to. Or you could go meet others like you through the gay dating apps. You've thrown yourself in the deep end now, before you've even had lessons with lifeguards whom white sunscreen ports their noses. You'll have to learn quickly how to untie the ropes that burn your ankles red and take you down with toxic inflictions. No femboys, twinks only, more categories to all discern where in the vast world you can call home. Why would I choose to live this way? Polluting all of media is the showings of relationships unobtainable that do not coincide with you. Of course, there's always the option to imagine yourself in the woman's bright, dazzling stilettoed shoes, which strut down each hardship with powerful emissions of excellence through society's jabs at her existence. Kind of like me, maybe. There comes a time when the isolated cries become stifled, only to come through again harder, Niagara Falls flowing from your mountainous face when the words first slip out to yourself, I'm gay. You don't question why it took all these years to admit it. Does a blind man only come to realize of his own condition after years of darkness? Thoughts that are too raw for your vulnerable self. Something that's been titled to you, harmoniously becoming the first impression thought when your name is mentioned. The very subject that casts you out of mainstream society suddenly becomes the most dangerous words you could ever speak aloud. In fact, the word, gay, is redacted from your vocabulary. For now. That is, until you can no longer live without it. Doesn't that waiter seem gay, a friend of Dorothy's? All around you it seems to fester because the harder you try and forget something, the more it becomes manifested into your life. The life that is so very much yours to learn to live with. Gay, as you twitch in your creaky desk in a school classroom, a pair of eyes under curly blonde locks peer at you, and you assume a mind reader's position to their thinking. Gay, when the exhausted gas station workers' grade bags remain turned in your direction for too long. Gay, when sitting down in your living room on the couch, watching the TV, you remind yourself to spread your legs, uncross, as someone walks by, surely analyzing the absolute worst truth. Gay, here's the moment where a shift occurs, varying for all, but vital for you. Who do you tell first? Who do you tell that you're finally admitting you are what they've always called or wondered about you? It'd be like shooting a gun for the first time. You already know there'll be smoke, tears, from the source, you. Adrenaline will pile drive your nerves, which overflowed past the edges of the top of the pot that was holding the words, I'm gay. You just shared something that took you years to come to terms with. And now, the first receiver of the news has only seconds to make an impact that could either progress or regress all your work. Crying because it's out there and you can't take it back. Crying because they could spread the news to everyone, because they may not realize you still weren't ready. Because you will never feel ready to share your sexual epiphanies that seem to cause more turmoil than joy in a secluded light's view. However, the moment's over for now, and the air you've evolved, elevated. Many have explained it as the moment you realize you've been holding your breath your entire life until this moment. You'll still have a long way to go, but this is a great start.
Finding interlude. Some form of trauma exists in us all. I used to be carefree on the matter. I let my mind deceive me into thinking I had no qualms. I should simply ignore the hard times. It doesn't perceive me, some might say. However, that was the only doing an injustice to myself. Growth comes in many forms through all of us as we progress towards the desired point of higher ascension. For some, it is getting out of bed filled with its heavy, warm blankets of restriction. Others may feel salty secretions of sweat dripping down their faces as their strained leg muscles tense for another mile to endure running. Regardless of the situation, it is equally never easy. But as the tiny packets of progress are put into our pockets, we take on the extra weight and keep soaring. We must for the sake of our stability. Otherwise, we wouldn't be human. I guess what I'm trying to say with all of this is that there's just a certain paradise many of us are trying to get to. I wonder who was holding me back from mine, others or myself. Sometimes you just have to ask for help before you drown on the way, and then you can even help others to get to their desired destination. Communities aren't built overnight. People are not one in one swift motion or snap. The shifting moments, however, are golden.
Heating thoughts. I lie there, thoughtfully, sensing the warmth of the heating sun and letting it enter my physical form, filling every crevice and empty space. Like a poulgerist, it inhabits my body. Thoughts fly like the monarchs and bees, engaging in the sporadic flight, leaving the mind to reflect in the natural void of narcissism. Grass selfishly tickles at my skin playfully as I shut my eyes and let the sensations override me. With calm, lengthy breaths, I am in paradise, my personal paradise of wonder.
A homage to Violent Bent Backwards Over the Grass by Lana Del Rey. I walked out of my room, chiffon draping down to my ankles, your eyes covering the rest of all that was exposed and making me remember your promises assured along with mine as they connect cosmically into this shared universe and all it conceptualizes. And you make me smile when the lucky strike gets put out and those conceptions mentioned previously reshape across the crimping sheets as my thigh passes your warm cheek into the magic that pushes past the beyond of tragic, where I long fled after you. This reminds me why I follow your lead into these treacherous terrains, past my regions of safety and all that's tame, leaving me only to assume that I'll stay in your embrace, always.
Acceptance at last. The glares of opulently dim lamps blind my sight of view as I twirl. All the obscenities of the outside remain encapsulated from this heaven of stained carpet and crap. Nicotine aromas trapped within each surface of this room remain saddening until it becomes enjoyable. My heart glistens as my senses farewell to this reality in which I was forced to remain in for this long. I turn over each picture of my family that remains, as in some way they'll still be affected. I guess at this point, why do I even care? I was worried whether the other side would accept me, considering how little this side hadn't. However, here I dance gleefully as the paranormal jolly around, circulating myself. My movements cause awe as I gyrate, hoping the ghosts pay attention and watch this confidence they've never seen, and once the right stuff kicks in, I join them at last. Spirits around me sharing their stories, and in turn, I learn of the courage needed to avoid death. From abandoned teen moms to lost drunkards, I listen. My hands grip my shins as my body awkwardly curves in agony. I resonate with all the suffocating pain which has clung onto them even after death. They don't realize how it begins reinforcing the doubts I ever had of joining them, especially in this point of stasis, eternally excruciating. I don't explain anything to them when I run out of the trashy motel room. I don't explain leaning over half a bottle's worth of pills sprawled out on the dingy green carpet. I promised I'd swallow rainbows to live with them as they told me how easy it'd be, a vow I don't regret breaking. I just keep running, forgiving, crying, thrashing away from the ghosts of my past and into the future of my long journey of becoming.
Hi, everyone. So that concludes my half of the showcase, and now we're going to have a brief 10-minute intermission, and there's refreshments provided over there, and yeah, thank you.
Hello, it's time for the second part of the showcase. So, if you haven't eaten all your fruit, you gotta throw it away. I'm just kidding. It's a joke. So my half of the showcase, I tried to prioritize pieces that meant the most to me and I felt like needed to be heard rather than the ones that won awards. So, hope you enjoy.
Excerpt from Rumors and Reality. On a clear day, one could see the house, but no one dared go close enough to get a good look. It seemed to be old and wooden, with a strange feel about it. Rumors spread like wildfire about the person who lived there. Her name was Anja. She had moved in recently, and strange objects were brought to her house. Some people said she was a witch, others that she was a demon. No one really knew for sure. She seemed to never leave her house except to get the essentials. Sometimes people might see her shadow through the curtains, though. Lizzie was always a curious girl, with long, thick, brown hair that went halfway down her back. She convinced her friend of many years, Emil, a small Indian boy who seemed to be scared of everything, to snoop around the old house with her. "What's the worst that could happen?" Lizzie said. She could turn us into frogs," Emil retorted. "Don't be silly. Real magic doesn't work like that." "Okay, well, then she might put a curse on us. We don't even know that she's evil, or a witch for that matter. Everyone says she is. Has anyone ever met her, though? She might just be shy." Lizzie looked over at the house. "Come on, aren't you curious?" "Yeah," Emil sighed. "All right, then let's go. The sun's already setting." Lizzie started off towards the old mansion. "Wait for me," Emil ran after her. Lizzie creeped behind the set of hedges as the sun sank further into the earth. Emil followed her eyes to a window. The blinds were drawn, but she could still see a little bit between them. In the gaps there appeared to be a tall and thin woman. She wore a scarlet-colored dress with long, droopy sleeves that looked almost mystical in appearance. Her hair was auburn and shoulder-length. It must have been her, Anja. She walked barefoot along the wooden door over to a grand bookshelf. There were many books, many of which were lavishly decorated and well-maintained. She picked up a novel that was blue with gemstones decorating the cover. Lizzie's eyes twinkled in awe. "That's the prettiest book I've ever seen," she whispered. Emil rolled his eyes, clearly unimpressed. Suddenly, Anja's eyes turned to the window. Lizzie ducked and pulled Emil down with her. They held their breath as Anja turned back around and went back to her novel. "Do you think she saw us, Lizzie?" Emil whispered to her. She shook her head. "I don't think so. If she did, she would have come outside or something." She paused for a breath. "We should probably get out of here for now, though." "Yes, and never come back." Lizzie glared at him. "What?" Emil glared back. "Stop being a baby and let's go." The two walked quietly away from the house, trying to keep their heads low and out of view of the window. When they were out of sight of the looming building, they quickly ran back to Lizzie's place. They got back to her living room and sprawled out on the couches. "Well, that was sure an adrenaline-pumping adventure," Lizzie chuckled. "Yeah, right. Your adventures are going to get us killed one day, I swear." Emil looked agitated, but Lizzie could see a slight smile on his face. "I know you secretly love this kind of stuff, even if you would never admit it." Lizzie turned over on the couch to look at him. Emil tried to hold his angry face, but ultimately failed as they both started to giggle. "All right, you better get home before your mom comes and breaks down the door." Lizzie hugged Emil. "Yeah, see you tomorrow." Emil waved and headed out the door and began walking toward his house. Lizzie went to her room and started to daydream. She dreamed of the mysterious Anja, her mystical old wooden house, and her beautifully bound books topped with crystals. What other secrets could she be hiding? Was she really a witch or just a social recluse? Really, it wasn't any of her business, but that had never stopped her before. Lizzie was a curious girl. She couldn't help it. It was in her veins. She had been this way for as long as she could remember. That night, Lizzie continued to dream of Anja, her dress with long sleeves and her clean auburn hair haunting the girl's thoughts. She saw her in the form of a stereotypical witch, making potions over a cauldron, chanting about eyes of newt and the breath of frogs.
Can you hear her?
Have you lost your ears?
The sound is everywhere.
The sound of her violently being choked.
You owe her everything.
Yet you will kill her.
All you ever do is take.
Take the land.
Give back rotten garbage that never decays.
How often do you carelessly pollute everything around you?
You chop down entire forests.
Fill the oceans with more plastic than fish.
You belch smog up into the sky.
Animals are dying.
Entire species are dying.
Entire ecosystems are dying.
You have become so dependent on what is cheap.
You wreck your own home for some green-stained paper.
All that plastic you throw out?
Yeah, it never goes away.
It will only ever break down into small little bits that contaminate our own drinking water.
There are places in the ocean where for miles around all you can see is our garbage.
How does that make you feel?
Does it make you realize that there are consequences to your actions?
Does it make you sad?
Guilty, maybe? Good.
Because unless there's a whole lot of people who start caring about this, we're doomed.
Instead of addressing the problem, billionaires are trying to find another planet to inhabit.
Do you really want to live underground on Mars?
No fresh air, no plants, no water, no animals, just blank, sullen rock as far as the eye can see.
Does that not sound like the most depressing thing imaginable?
There is no planet B. Just start taking care of what we have.
It's beautiful, and it's worth protecting.
Mother Nature is dying.
Will you help her?
Ghost hugs. At rise, the room is dim. A girl sits on her bed with another empty bed next to her. Lights up. Another girl that looks almost the same as the other appears and sits on the empty bed.
Hey, Scarlett.
Hey,
What's the matter?
I miss you, Shay. I miss you so much.
What do you mean, silly? I'm right here.
Are you though? Or am I just going crazy?
You aren't crazy. You're grieving.
You're right, I'm grieving. Grieving something that I will never be able to get over. It should have been me.
Stop it with the survivor's guilt.
Scarlett starts to sob.
How? How can I not be guilty that my twin is dead? That you were going to do amazing things with your life, but yet I'm here trying to fill in the huge shoes you left. I've always been nothing more than your twin. I don't know how to live on my own.
Hush now, sister. It will all work out.
Okay.
Just breathe, sis.
Scarlett takes a couple deep breaths.
See? Doesn't that feel better?
To be honest, not really.
Well, you aren't bawling your eyes out.
I guess that's true.
I told you so.
Hey, now don't get too cocky.
Never.
Scarlett chuckles lightly.
That's the sense of humor I'll miss most of all.
Guess you'll just have to be the comedian now.
I guess so.
You can do it, sis. You got this.
I hope you're right.
Aren't I always?
I guess so. Yeah, I just don't want you to be gone.
I won't ever be fully gone. Only my body has left. My spirit is still here.
I know, but I can't hug you or chase you around when you steal my hairbrush. Just things like that I'm gonna miss.
Yeah, I will miss those things as well.
Why did you have to go? I shouldn't have let you go to that stupid party.
Don't blame yourself. It wasn't your fault. It was my choice to go there. I didn't know that someone would come speeding down the small town road at least 30 miles over the speed limit. I didn't know I would be lying on the ground, lungs filling with blood, wishing you were there to hold my hand as I drown in my own life force. I didn't know I would be declared dead when the ambulance arrived. I didn't know that despite the best efforts to perform CPR, my body would never breathe again. I just didn't know.
I know how awful it must have been, but how could you have known? It was the stupid driver's fault. He should have been paying attention. I hope he gets mangled by wolves and left to be eaten by vultures. He didn't even try to help you. He only wanted to get out and save his own pathetic hide and sped off.
Don't worry about him. The police may be lazy, but they won't let somebody who murdered a kid just walk away without some kind of fight.
Just trying isn't enough. They need to catch the bastard. Even if they do, he'll probably only get a couple years because it was an accident.
Best not to worry about the things you can't control.
Hell no. I'm not letting him get away with this. I'll track him down myself if I have to.
Be careful. Blooding your own hands won't help.
Who said I was going to kill him?
Wouldn't you?
Yes, absolutely. I would strangle him with my bare hands if I could. Going to prison would be a mercy to him.
Now, Scar. You know that wouldn't change anything.
It could keep him from hurting anyone else.
He probably was just scared and ran. I don't think he meant to hit me. He was probably just drunk.
I don't care if he was drunk or high on heroin. He should have stopped the car and called an ambulance after he hit someone. Instead, he left you to die.
Yeah, you're right. But I doubt if I could have been saved at that point anyways. Punctured lungs aren't an easy fix.
Doesn't matter. It was his fault. He hit you. He should have at least tried to help you.
Some people are just rotten, Scar.
Believe me, I know it.
Scarlet begins to pace the floor.
You're pacing again.
You know I can't help it. It's a nervous habit.
Just don't wear a groove into the floor.
Scarlet rolls her eyes.
You always did have a sense of humor, even at the worst of times.
How else am I going to cheer you up?
Shay crosses her arms playfully.
I don't understand how you can be so optimistic, even in death.
Maybe that's just how I am.
Yeah, it's like you always look at the positive side.
Hey, it isn't so bad. I can still talk to you.
Can anyone else hear you?
I don't think so. Only those who were bonded to who we were bonded to most, I believe.
Scarlet chuckles.
What's so funny?
I can see it now. Who are you talking to? Oh, just my dead sister. I'll be in a loony bin before the end of the month.
Yeah, perhaps it's best to only talk to me when you're alone.
Agreed.
Scarlet plops back onto the bed on her back.
Get tired of pacing?
Yeah, you know I'm not athletic.
You play sports, though.
Doesn't mean I'm energetic, especially right now.
Yeah, that's fair.
Scarlet rolls to her side, away from Shay.
I don't want you to leave. Can you just stay by my side?
Who said I'm going anywhere?
I don't know. Can't ghosts only wander around Earth so long?
I don't see any how to properly be a ghost handbooks lying around.
Yeah, I guess the stuff we think we know about ghosts is just speculation.
I don't know what's out for me in the afterlife. It may just be this, watching over you. I can be your guardian angel.
You know I don't believe in that religion crap.
Yeah, well, neither do I. Hey, I'm not burning in a fiery pit for all of eternity.
Well, that's good news. I hate how forced it is on us. It's all just escapism and subliminal brainwashing.
Yeah, just imagine how mad they would be if I could tell them they wasted their whole lives worshiping a fantasy.
Somehow I think they still wouldn't believe it, even if it comes right from the horse. Well, the ghost mouth.
Shay comes up behind Scarlet and hugs her.
It's a ghost hug. You can't feel better, but it's there.
Actually, I can feel it, but it's really light. Like just a brush of hair and a bit cold.
I guess our connection is really strong then.
Was there ever a doubt that it wasn't? We're twins after all.
Connected through spirits and by birthday.
Cheers.
Now get some rest, it's late.
Will you be here in the morning?
I would never leave you for good without saying goodbye.
Okay, then good night, Shay. Even as a ghost, I'll love you forever.
Good night, Scar. I'll see you in the morning.
The lights dim. Scarlet closes her eyes and drifts to sleep. Shay watches over her as the curtains close.
You throw stones at birds. Not once have they done anything to harm you, but they are weak and you are strong. You must let them know you are the superior one. So you pelt your hard, jagged rocks and then wonder why the birds will fly away. Not once did you ever consider how the birds felt about all this. Did you ever think that it may not like being pummeled with pebbles? But they aren't really pebbles, they are boulders. You may think they are insignificant, but to the bird they are terribly painful. The bird may swoop at you with its claws extended. You will curse the bird and tell it it's good for nothing. But you never took the time to think after years of you throwing stones at it, it was tired. Tired of being hit and mocked as it ran for cover. tired of being constantly afraid if it was safe, never knowing if the day it was could be its last. But you will never learn. People who throw stones at birds will always continue to do so.
Pumped Up Kitten. Marcy walked down the street in her black boots that made her footsteps have a sort of clunking sound to them. She wore ripped pants, a beanie, a crop top, and a sort of fishnet-looking overskirt. She had a chain with a lock around her neck and hard makeup. As Marcy turned the corner on the street, a man bumped into her. Instead of saying something remotely related to sorry, he just muttered, "Emo," and kept walking. Marcy looked back at the man, walking away, and simply stuck her third fingers up as a sort of silent retaliation. As she walked by the next alleyway, she heard a tiny mew. Marcy turned to see the tiniest kitten she'd ever seen. She bent down to the small creature and extended her hand to it. The kitten sniffed at her hand for a few seconds and then headbutted her hand. "Aw, aren't you cute? Just the cutest little thing." Marcy looked around the alley. "Where's your mama?" There was no mama cat in sight, not even any other kittens. "She's not coming back for you, is she?" Marcy knew it was not unheard of for animals to abandon their smallest child because they are less likely to make it anyways. With this in mind, she scooped up the little kitten and held it close to her body. The kitten simply nuzzled itself into her arm and began to purr. It was a pleasant sensation, and Marcy could not help but put a smile on her face. As she walked back home, she stopped by a pet store and walked into the cat section. She picked up some necessities like kitten formula, a bottle, a flea collar, a water bowl, and a toy. When she went to buy her first items, the cashier looked at the tiny fluff ball in her arms. "Aw, looks like it really likes you." Marcy smiled with a hint of embarrassment. "I suppose so." She said she paid for the items and she began to walk home, the kitten in arm, supplies in the other. When Marcy got home, she jiggled her keys into the door and opened it. She walked inside and shut the door. The kitten peeked its head up curiously and surveyed its new surroundings. She set the kitten on the floor and sat beside it. She took the collar out and fastened it around the small animal's neck, gently, and then patted its head. The girl looked at the tiny gray kitten with blue eyes. "I think I'll name you Smokey." The kitten purred as if to sound its approval of the name it had been given. "You like that?" Marcy chuckled. She took out the feather on a string she had bought in the store and began to play with her new companion. The kitten jumped and batted at the feather with amusement. "I'm really glad I found you, Smokey. I can already tell we're going to be best friends." Smokey had butted her leg compassionately. "We both just needed a friend, didn't we?" The cat flopped over and looked at her with its crystal blue eyes and seemed to smile at her. "I'll take that as a yes."
An excerpt from Infected. It was a normal fall afternoon. Cleo was in history class, tapping her pen on the desk as her teacher recited a series of dates that were supposedly important. She looked over at her bookcase beside her. She just wanted school to be over so she could go to archery practice, something that wasn't dreadfully boring. "Cleo, would you like to tell us what we were going over?" The teacher looked at her with a stern expression of disapproval. Mr. Hayes was a balding middle-aged teacher with only a few strands of brown hair clinging to the top of his head, probably from memorizing all of this useless information. The rest resided around the edges. He wore thin frame glasses and had a trapezoid-shaped mustache that seemed to dance around as he squabbled on. Cleo could only seem to mumble something boring with a sigh, keeping her head down to avoid the stares of her classmates that began once the teacher had called her out. "We're waiting, Cleo," Haste echoed in the dead-silent classroom. "You don't ever pay attention in my class. I have half a mind to tape you in the direction of the board." Mr. Haste began getting louder. As Haste walked angrily to the desk where Cleo sat, something burst through the window, knocking him over. The students all jumped back in shock at the unusual ordeal. What was before their eyes was nothing they had ever seen in a biology textbook, nor any other educational source given to them at school. It was something straight out of a horror film. Hay screamed as the creature began to bite into his flesh. Like a hyena, it didn't have the mercy to kill its prey before consumption. Most of the students' voices were stolen by fear and utter shock. However, a few of the students began screaming bloody murder. Hay stopped, struggling. If he was alive, he'd given up the fight. The creature then darted its head up in the direction of the screaming students. Cleo immediately jumped into animation and grabbed her black bow case. She ripped the bow out of its velcro straps and grabbed an arrow from its spot. As the horrid abomination limped towards the terrified group, Cleo drew back her bow and took aim. Precisely on target, her arrow tore through its back and the tip sliced through its chest cavity. For a moment, the room was still. Cleo could feel her heart beating at an alarming rate. She never used her skills to cause injury, but she trusted that she did the right thing, as this monster had murderous intent. The creature turned its horrid face and stared at Cleo, which left her having shivers. Then it completely slumped over and ceased moving entirely. Cleo realized then that every set of living eyes were on her, making her feel like she had just told a joke that no one got. But there were no jokes, and no one was laughing. "Is everyone all right?" Cleo managed to sputter out in her state of bewilderment. "You just saved our lives," one of the girls spoke up. "Thank you." "You were giving her too much credit. I could have killed that thing too," a bulky jock wearing a red jersey sneered. "But you didn't," the girl glared at him. In response, he balled his hands into fists and skulked, marching away. That would be his last mistake. As the boy opened the door, Cleo saw his tough demeanor shatter like a mirror being pelted by rocks. There were tons of these creatures roaming through the halls. As soon as they saw him, he was as good as dead. In an instant, a creature jumped on him, biting straight through his jugular, sending a splatter of blood on the wall. The shape of the creature left an ominously clean spot on the large stain. Before anyone could think of helping him, he was gone. While the creature was busy consuming the boy, Cleo, thinking quickly, shut the door and barricaded it with a desk. Although the desk was not very sturdy, a key was needed to lock the door. She figured it would be better than nothing, but somehow the frail desk managed to disappoint her low expectations by flying across the room at the first few pushes. They seemed to be unable to use handles, but the school's cheap wooden doors were no match for this makeshift army driven forward only by bloodlust. "Everyone, quickly, through the broken window. That door won't hold very long," Cleo directed sternly as she readied her bow. The students looked at each other for a moment before the first one decided to jump. The broken glass in the frame might give them a small cut, but it was far better than the alternative. It was a far better alternative than being gutted alive. Cleo placed her foot on one of the classroom chairs, bending into the perfect angle to aim through the small gap in the door. Just as it opened, an arrow went through it without even nicking the splintered wood. The creature fell to the ground with a gross splat, the arrow piercing straight through the eye socket. A few of the students lingered, frozen in place in fear. "Go! I don't know how long I can hold them off." Cleo rapidly shot 3 more rounds, but she was quickly running out of arrows. The small group eventually made its way out. Cleo plucked her arrow from the creature in the room. She put her hand on the part of the frame without glass and threw her legs outward with her bow and arrow stuck on her back. On the ground, she discovered that all her classmates had scattered, all except one, the blonde girl she rescued. Nervously shaking, she begged, "Please, let me stay with you. I'm scared. I know I never really talked to you before, but I was just too shy." Cleo, feeling sympathetic about her disheveled state, agreed. "Yeah, come on." Cleo looked back to see that the monsters were struggling slightly, but were managing to start piling out the broken windows. Without a word, Cleo grabbed the girl's hand and ran in the direction of the sporting goods store. She needed more arrows if she was going to be able to continue the fight well. Cleo finally felt in her element. There were no pop quizzes, no boring lectures, just pure, rough instinct. Cleo never did well in school. It was not that she was dumb, these things just didn't interest her. If the curriculum were more hands-on, maybe she would have done better, but most classes repeated the cycle of listening, reading, and trying to remember who did what in the 19th century. Cleo hated to sit still, and that's all school was, just sitting still for 8 hours a day and trying not to let any grades fall below passing, so she could stay on the archery team. She was in grave danger, yet Cleo had never felt more alive, more useful, or more needed. Before realizing she had come this far, Cleo made it to the vacant parking lot of Richie's, the store she frequented for years. Although she did not see any creatures lingering around, the scene told her that they had definitely been here. The glass doors were shattered, and the large building was left unattended by workers. One of them laid lifeless by the door, but the rest seemed to have made it out in one piece. The blonde girl appeared to have become sick at the sight of the body, and sure enough, she puked on the concrete sidewalk lining the store. Cleo grabbed a trap from inside and laid it over the body, partially out of respect, and partially to keep herself and her companion from having to endure the gruesome state of the cadaver. Once the girl emptied her stomach for the last time, Cleo guided her up and inside the store. "So, your name is Cleo, right?" she asked, her voice soft. "Yeah, I suppose we should be on a name basis. What's yours?" "Jamie," the girl sputtered. "All right, Jamie. Do you have any combat skills?" Cleo questioned, grabbing whatever looked useful from the shelves as she spoke. No, but I could learn." Jamie's voice droned out as she played with her hair. Eventually, Cleo reached the archery equipment and refilled her arrow stack. Then she pulled a target from the shelf and handed Jamie a pack of throwing knives. "Try these, they're pretty light," Cleo instructed as she placed the blades in the girl's hand. Jamie seemed unsure as she examined the knives in her hand and gazed at the target. Hesitantly, she took one in her grasp and threw it. Although it wasn't a bad shot, the blade didn't pierce the target, just bounced off the styrofoam onto the floor. "Your aim is pretty good," Cleo commented. "You just have to get better at knowing what angle you need to throw the knife at to make it stick." Cleo plucked one of the blades from Jamie's hand and demonstrated the proper way to throw. "Wow, you're so good at all this stuff," Jamie beamed at Cleo. "Yeah, I guess. I like an adventure, so I do archery. I've thrown knives and axes, gone roof hopping, done all the stuff boys say girls can't do." Cleo smirked. "Well, you're definitely the toughest girl I've ever met," Jamie chuckled. Cleo and Jamie rested in the store for a few hours. Cleo coached Jamie on throwing knives, and they both talked for a while, sharing their stories and becoming closer in the process. Cleo smiled. In this mess, she found a friend, perhaps the first one she ever really had. It was honestly a foreign thought to her since she'd always been a loner, somewhat by choice, somewhat by force. Maybe it was the fact that her parents didn't have an ounce of care for her that drove her down the path of solitude, or maybe it was just her nature.
Take a moment to clear your mind and step out of your own shoes and into someone else's, just for a moment. Close your eyes, empty your mind. I want you to imagine you have a headache. Not a big deal, right? Take a couple of Advil and you'll be back to normal, right? Well, no, the headache doesn't go away then. Maybe you need to get your eyes checked. Your mom needed glasses. That's gotta be it. Well, your eyes are fine. The headache has lasted several days now, and you decide to seek medical help. You book an appointment with a neurologist. Surely this is something they've seen before, and you'll be feeling better in no time, right? Well, you try and fail at dozens of treatments. MRIs all come back normal, but you haven't had a pain-free day in months. You've developed other symptoms such as severe waves of nausea. You're so sensitive to light you need to wear sunglasses inside. The smell of strong perfume or cleaning products makes your pain increase by tenfold. You can't have your music as loud as you used to. You have to avoid the foods you used to love out of the fear of worsening symptoms. You went to a specialist hospital for people just like you, but were still unable to find the treatment you needed. You fall away from the sport you love, shielding your eyes from the fluorescent gymnasium lights as you cry on the floor of the freshman locker room. The months have turned into years, but it's all a blurry haze of pain and misery. People look at you funny and make fun of you for wearing your sunglasses. Complex math problems cause your head to pound, and all you're left with is frustration. You're supposed to be the smart kid, but you're failing timed quizzes because your frizzled out brain is too much pain to think as quickly as it used to. You start to fade away from those you care about. Your coach calls you into a meeting telling you you're no longer part of the team. Your disability has taken away something you loved. You used to be a star. Now you're nothing more than the dust that covers the floor. You're disabled. You aren't needed. Nobody wants someone who can't even bear to look into the sunshine. You're useless. And you're alone. You need a change of scenery. You go to a school you only hope will accept you more, but sorrow follows you with lust in its eyes. As if life didn't suck enough, you're exhausted from your brain never having a second to recover. People misunderstand your pain as rudeness. You are completely alone. Your pain is so great sometimes you'll be sobbing quietly in a common area just because you can no longer bear the loneliness of your dark room and your stained pillowcase. You can feel yourself slowly sinking into the depths of despair, but you are clinging on to any scrap of hope and light you can find. You love playing video games, but alas, you can hardly ever bring yourself to see the light of your computer screen, even on the lowest possible brightness. Depression has formed a parasitic relationship with your disease and is becoming fat and overbearing upon you. You can barely motivate yourself to finish your assignments for school. What's the point, anyways? You stop taking care of yourself. You have neglected your friends. Your laundry is overflowing. You can't even remember the last time you washed your hair. Your head pain only seems to get worse and worse as time goes on. You have lost hold of all hope. You can swim, but you're getting tired. Very tired. You beg and plead for someone to save you, but there is no lifeguard. You're sinking without a cure, without consolation, without anyone's help at all. You would crawl across hot coals and shattered glass for miles if a cure was on the other side, but there is no such thing. You feel trapped within your skin. The girl who used to be is nowhere to be found. You are suffocating beneath the ever-growing storm of anguish, if only wishing that one day help will arrive. Open your eyes. I'm sure, as most of you would guess, this isn't some gruesome fiction I've concocted. I truly wish it was. This is my story in battling against my diagnosis, new persistent daily headache. There is no known cure or effective treatments. It's not understood or widely known. Some migraine medications were helpful to me at calming the pain down. However, that too has stopped helping. I want to spread awareness to this condition and how debilitating and utterly hopeless it can make you feel. I urge you to join the movement in funding of the headache conditions, or if nothing else, you can learn something from my story. Thank you.
And let's give our literary students a round of applause. Lillian Denney, could you join us for our conference? Congratulations and thank you so much. I've got a chair here. Now, before we get started, I would love to acknowledge the wonderful readers. Readers, if you guys could come out and greet the audience and then take your seats. Thank you so much, readers. Congratulations, Lillian and Diego, on a beautiful showcase tonight. You should be so proud. And I will turn it over to the audience if anyone has any thoughts about anything that you heard tonight, or just questions for the writers. I do. I always do. And I've got those ready. If no one has anything right away, we can circle back to you. I guess I can start off. First thing is, when you guys were planning your showcase, is there a certain tone, feeling, mood that you wanted to achieve with this experience?
Yeah, I say we really just kind of compile our work and see what the feel of our most valuable pieces were, and try to. I literally printed out like 300 sheets of paper and organized them into stacks. Our original theme was different, but we found it didn't really fit our work as well, so we decided on this theme, finding strength, featuring change, because that's what fit us the best.
And I really just wanted to highlight how, like, the beauty and pain, because I think there's a lot of moments that people shy away from or look away from, but I think if you really just, like, look at it for how glorious it can be, and yeah, that's what I want to say.
How would you describe your growth from junior year to as a writer? Your growth. We can start with you since Lillian started.
Okay. Well, personally, I feel like I'm out of my poetry flop era, and like in terms of writing, I feel like I've grown a lot. But just as a person, I think I'm better at just kind of like on the fly. I feel like I'm finally getting a group of things to a point where I can like, I don't know, adapt.
Well, I honestly came here to be a visual, but then I decided to be a literary, spice it up a little. And I'm so glad I did. Miss Sibley, you have taught me so much and helped me grow, not only as a writer, but as a person as well. And I'll be forever grateful for that. I started off writing really in like 7th grade on Wattpad. We all know what that is, right? Fan fiction, obviously. I'd say I've come a long way from that, although I did have the top rated story, so.
Okay. Sorry. Which friend? Which friend?
I don't think you want to know.
Just tell me later. Because you can talk to the writer. Yes.
When is your, like, because I don't know, when is the perfect time to write, you would say, like in the morning, at night, lunchtime?
I always want to do that too.
Yeah.
personally, I usually, it depends, first, because usually all of a sudden I'll just be randomly doing something and like, bam, like a line will just come into my head or an idea, and I have to immediately like just stop whatever I'm doing and write it down or like go to my notes app, because I just like, I have to get it out or else I'll lose it. Because I always like to say like the works or the characters kind of find me, and then I just help tell their story.
Well, obviously the literary class is a great place to write, but I found a lot of my works just come to me like randomly. Sometimes like a lot at night, not some when I should be asleep. But I feel like some of them comes just from my inner monologue. It's just like always doing things up there, and I just type it in and correct it later.
Yeah. And you have that? Yeah, I should be asleep. Any other questions? Yes.
Mentally, for both of y'all, like, what was the process of writing, the poems, the stories that y'all told us today? I felt very indifferent about both of them. It was beautiful, both of y'all. Y'all explained to me, like, it's going to be out here at that time.
Great. Oh, thank you very much. I think a lot of the process was, well, telling stories is obviously something I like to do, but I like to have like a meaning behind the story, or it's not as good of a story as it could be. And a lot of mine have like hidden messages or messages that come out and smack you in the face. Either way, but I think that I try to write about issues that I feel strongly about, such as climate change and underrepresented diseases, But yeah, what about you?
Thank you also. And I'd like to say that, well, kind of going off of what I said before about like how the characters find me, sometimes like I'll think of like an idea or like find a character or a story, and then I'll be writing it, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, like when I realize what they're about to go through, and if it's something really intense, like for example, in my showcase there was like abusive relationships and stuff, so I'll just take myself there. I'll go wherever I need to go to tell that story, and then it might be like really hard, but I just try to like go on ahead and do it while I'm in that mental space, even if it's like dark or something. And then afterwards, I'll just do, just eat whatever pleasure food I like.
I have some similarities to my students when they respond to these questions.
Nice snacks.
I will have my comfort food after hard writing also. Oh, any other questions? Yes.
Do you know how this inspiration just come randomly, or do you go to certain things to find inspiration?
Where does inspiration come from?
Some of it is random, some of it, comes from other art. Like I'll be watching a show and then all of a sudden I'm like, that's such a cool idea, and then I'll like kind of rework it, retwist it, and like to kind of fit me more in my style. But I'd say it's random, or it comes from other art, music included.
I definitely agree with the music thing. I'm very passionate about music. I think I even had some kind of presentation on music last year. But music definitely helps me create things visually and writing. But a lot of my work comes randomly, or I have to go chase it down with a lasso. But also we do mentor text, and a lot of times I'll pick out certain elements and bend it into a pretzel of my story.
Great. Anything else? We can wrap up. Just tell us about your future plans, and if you're not, really grounded in your future plans, the future projects.
Well, I'm not entirely sure, but I do have interest in working on video games. I also want to open a cat cafe.
I want to be just want to be a boss, like not like that. I want to own hotels. I want to and I want them to be geared towards like climate change in a way. It's this whole thing I have. There's gonna be butterfly gardens. It's gonna be cool. And yeah, that's really what I want to do. And I just want to keep helping in a way.
Is that like a business major?
Business.
Can I be your princess?
That makes sense. We're networking. Got a manager. Okay. Anything else before we? Anybody want to say anything? Well,
I just want to say, I really enjoyed everything.
Thank
You
you.
guys are really good readers. Like, your voice is really
excellent stories. Readers, y'all got some props. Well, congratulations again. Wonderful, beautiful work tonight. And I want to invite you to our last showcase. It will be in Lampton Auditorium. It's on May 9th, Monday, May 9th. And that will be our fourth and final senior showcase for this year. Very bittersweet, but very proud of you all nonetheless. And I also want to let you know that we are a sort of a publishing house in our department. We publish a literary journal every spring. The senior literaries are responsible for creating and building this book, and these seniors will have their book coming out in May. Is when it usually gets released just before graduation. But we do have copies of our 13th edition, so they are responsible for the 14th edition, and that means it's been 14 books. That is amazing. And so we do have some for $10 here if anyone is interested in getting some literature and artwork. It is both a collection of writing and art from our visual students. So it's one of our collaboration projects that we do with the visual department. And we do have some for $10, just a few. But if you don't have that tonight, I just want to let you know that you can go to the website where copies can be purchased online. And if you're interested in pre-ordering, you can contact me and I can make sure that you get a copy of the 14th edition. But that is all that we have tonight. We hope that y'all have a safe trip back to the dorm or wherever you came from to visit with us tonight. But we thank you so much for being here and making this experience so memorable. So thank y'all, and y'all have a great night. Congratulations.